Can you tell them what you're doing? Going first.
It'll be interpreted.
Okay, good afternoon, Chair Ballendroff, members Garrett, Holmes, staff and guests. The lobbies are open and the recording has begun.
Thank you, Gretchen. Good afternoon, everybody. I'll now convene the executive management team meeting for Wednesday, March 11th. Before we get started, I will say if you hear any yelling in the background, it's because the Huskies just went into overtime against USC. And so if you hear that, that's my husband in the background yelling, especially if we win. With that, I will jump right into the agenda. And the first item on the agenda is LCB support of Executive Order 2506. And we've got Brian, Julie, and Sam presenting today. So I'll turn it over to you, Brian, and you can lead off your team.
Good afternoon, Chair Ballendroff, members Garrett and Holmes. We're glad to be here. I am here with Julie Graham. If you can see the people to my right, communications
Julie
consultant.
and Sam.
And there's Brad Rinke in the corner, agency graphic
Brad.
designer. And then Sam right there on the edge.
Welcome.
So for our segment today, we kind of took some liberties and mixed it up a little bit where we're not going to talk so much about what communications does overall or all the things that we're involved in, but we wanted to focus on a big area that you've heard me talk about before that involves each member of the team and all of us together now and over the next several years. And so we wanted to give you a perspective of Executive Order 2506, which focuses on customer experience. And so thank you, Gretchen, if that's the one I think who's doing this. The governor in his first year in office issued a slew of executive orders, but one was very clear that one focus or area that he focused on was the customer experience. I've heard him talk about it a lot. He talked about customer experience before he issued this. And he's also done other related ones. For example, there's 2503, which Becky's team is very involved in, which is around licensing timelines and permit timelines and things. And so these executive orders touch on staff across the agency, and you'll hear me talk about that a little bit as we go along. But today's focus is specifically on 2506. If you break down the executive order, I'm going to jump ahead of myself. Yeah, let's start a little bit about what this is. It was issued in September 3rd, 2025, and it establishes your Washington as lead. That's a new governor's agency led by Jesse Jones, you may be familiar with, and is establishing what agencies are going to be doing across the board and carrying out this executive order and among other things. You can see that I go, oh, can you go on to the next one, Gretchen? Sorry. So you can see this, I lifted this quote straight from the purpose of what the executive order is supposed to cover. As you can see, it's got a lot of words up there, but it's essentially breaking down service delivery for state government and ensuring that it's responsive to the needs of all citizens across the state. I pulled that little definition right there where it essentially customer experience means designing services with the people who use and deliver them in mind. But really what that means is taking a broad or a holistic approach to the customer focus, not just providing the information that people need, but making sure that it's accessible so that someone who needed some sort of like a reader or something like that to be able to access our website and some of our materials so that they can get what they need. So, and lastly, that they are understandable. You heard Julie talk a little bit about plain language, not just the content, but is it something that someone can read fairly easily and get the gist of it and understand what it is that they're reading, which is something you hear about state government quite a bit, that it comes up short on, but something that we as a team and we as an agency have worked on for years, really, in trying to make sure that this is something that we prioritize. And as to help ensure that agencies carry out the executive order in the way that the governor's office is going to need it, they provided a customer experience improvement plan to all the agencies. It's very comprehensive. I mean, it was 12 pages of instructions, which is a lot. And But it did kind of detail what they want from agencies and over various criteria and how we're going to be able to carry that out. And so if you go on to the next one, Gretchen, please. If we look at the elements of the executive order, you could say it breaks down into three broad areas. The first is that it moves the entire state off of Secure Access Washington, which is the state portal for accessing so many things. All of our licenses and permits, or most of them, you have to go through the SAW portal to be able to access all those things. It moves it on to a new platform, which is called wa.gov. They want to put everything on wa.gov. It's supposed to be simpler to use, et cetera. But all agencies are going to have to move on to this platform. The tax and fee project that's being led by Spencer is going to have to build whatever their new platform is to meet the needs of the wa.gov. The rest of the agency is going to have to move over there by 2028. So they're securing spots right now for when agencies will transition over. I know that Tony set up a meeting time next week. We're meeting with folks from IT and getting ready for our new CIO to come over, which I'm sure will be a priority of hers to set out a plan for how we're going to move over onto wa.gov. So more on that to come. The second piece is what you're going to hear more from members of my team, touches on some broad customer experience touch points with milestones that agencies are going to have to demonstrate progress on being able to meet over time. One of them is usability, which you're going to hear Sam talk about, which is making sure our site is accessible and being able to reach those things. And that it's laid out in a way that we use usability in our little world, communications world, quite a bit because it is something that is expected of a communications team to be able to provide it in a way that someone can be able to read it quickly, get to what they need, and is essentially usable as opposed to a bunch of information. Next, it has to be accessible. And so you heard me talk about not only being able to see something with a screen reader, but it also talks about various things that Sam is also going to speak about because she's the lead on the communications and on the accessibility stuff, but also when to use translations or to have translation services available for someone who is a speaker or reader in a language other than English. We have prioritized, which we've been asked to do too, is the languages that people access that use our services. We know primarily non-English speakers and readers are Korean and Spanish speakers and readers. And so we have made a number of our materials, including a number of the social equity stuff, available primarily in Spanish for those over time, but we do things in Korean as well as other languages as needed. I'm working on something right now with enforcement in multiple languages. And then lastly is the part that Julie's going to touch on, which has to do with plain language and her efforts to be able to get the agency able to meet the criteria that's set forth by the governor's office. And then if on my last page here, yep, you're on it, Gretchen, is the third element is it requires agencies to identify key services and identifying things for improvement on. And so we discussed this among the leadership team. We worked with Jessica Dang, who is the lead staffer on making all this happen. By the way, Jessica is fantastic and a great person to have as a liaison with the governor's office because she comes from that world up there. She was so involved in Results Washington. Is a great asset for the LCB. But the 5 areas that we've identified that we're going to focus on going forward is final inspections with the enforcement and education team. Second is the rule petitions process with Justin's team and Kevin's team. Third being premises and education visits with enforcement and education. 4, special occasion permits with licensing. And lastly, 5, beer, wine, tax reporting with finance. So you can see it touches on every part of the agency. Jessica and my role, Jessica as the lead staff sort of works with each of those teams to be able to identify what it is that they want to be able to have to be measured on and how we're going to have that progress over time. And so I'm there with Jessica as we do this stuff. I have an oversight role as well as a contributor to carrying out these messages. But the division set up the timing for the measures and how they're doing. And we just kind of help facilitate that and work that. Jessica submitted our improvement plan last week to the governor's office. So we've sort of drawn that line in the sand and said, this is what we're going to be measured on going forward. They have that, accepted it, and we'll go with that going forward.
Chair Valdrop has a question.
Brian actually answered it while I was waiting, so thank you. It was just really about how did we identify these 5 and what role did the individual divisions play, and you answered that.
Who's winning? You don't have to say.
I heard a holler in the background, so I'm assuming that's good.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to Sam, and she's going to kind of guide you through the next element of that.
Hi there. Good afternoon. My name is
Sam.
Sam. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a communications consultant with our team, and I'm going to talk a little bit about usability and accessibility. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is in 2024, a big project that we took on was updating our website, which hopefully everyone is aware of. I have kind of like the before and after glow up there of our old site and what our new site looks like. And throughout that process, we worked with a third-party vendor to design and launch this site. And a lot of what we took into account was feedback on our site and how people were navigating it, as well as difficulties that they had using our site. So we kicked off this process by conducting feedback surveys with users of our site, as well as LCB staff, to figure out what people were using the site for, what was most popular, what were some pain points, and use that to kind of inspire our process. Throughout the process and the design, we had multiple sessions where we did some usability testing with both internal and external stakeholders. And so we really tailored the design based on a lot of that feedback throughout the whole process. And that took most of 2024. We launched the site in January 2025. And hopefully it looks a lot better and is easier to use, which is great for not only our staff, but people coming to our site as well, because I'm sure, as you can imagine, in the digital age, this is one of the first touch points that we have with customers looking for our services. Our goal in designing was 2 clicks or less to get to the point that people needed to access those resources. So that's kind of the goal that we have in mind when we're thinking about laying out menus, navigations, and things like that. One of the things that we also took into account was that about 50% of our users are coming to our site from mobile. And if you had ever accessed our old site on mobile, it was really not super friendly to that interface. And so that was one of the things that we prioritized in developing our new site. And as a part of that, we tried to make sure that our pages are scrollable rather than going through a bunch of clicks to get to something. We tried to put more on a page, which kind of makes our navigation a little less jumbled than I think our old site has. Kind of gained a lot of different pieces as people asked for different things to be prioritized. So we're trying now to make sure that we're really prioritizing what users are looking for and not just what we think those priorities might be. You can go to the next slide. So one of the things in developing a new website is that it really has set us up for success in some changes that are coming next month. So the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, is a universal standard for websites in accessibility. So basically, there are these 3 general categories that have some expectations for making sure that sites are perceivable, operable, and understandable. And so these are things like making sure color contrast is appropriate and high enough that people can see it. Alt text is added to photos or images, so people who are using a screen reader don't necessarily have to see the image, but can understand what it's trying to communicate. Making sure that our site is accessible with a keyboard only and not just keyboard and mouse. Compatible with other assistive technologies like screen readers, touchpads, et cetera, et cetera. And then Julie will talk a little bit more about that understandable piece, because that kind of ties into plain language. But we also want to make sure that things are clearly organized, that they're structured in a way that makes sense. And so that's some of the stuff we took into account when we were designing the site as well. So next month on April 24th, there are going to be some changes that go into effect from ADA in the Department of Justice. And in line with the Executive Order 2506 talking about usability and accessibility, we need to make sure that we're aligned with these standards up to level 2.1 AA. So there are kind of 3 categories. There's level A, level AA, and level AAA. And AAA is like the most accessible. Level A is the least accessible. And so these new standards are kind of in the middle. The good news is that because we recently updated our website, a lot of this stuff is already up to date. And for the most part, we're compliant and just need to kind of incorporate some best practices. Next slide, please. So one of the things that I've been doing over the past couple months is going through our website using analytics from the top pages visited over the past 6 months. And I've gone through the top 200 pages. We've gotten it down to about 100 hits for the past 6 months. And so I've manually analyzed those using a tool called Andy. And basically what that does is it's a browser extension that will just analyze the page and kind of highlight any potential accessibility issues. And so that is the tool that I've been using. We also had our website vendor perform an automatic analysis that just kind of analyzed the whole site and gave us the feedback based on that. And so the findings were pretty consistent. The only compliance issues that were found were some relics of moving from our old site to our new site. So things like images got moved over without alt text. There were some tables that were missing labels, and some minor like coding label things. And I'm glad to say that this week IT recently updated our site, and basically all of our coding issues have been resolved, which is awesome. So we're in compliance as far as our coding issues go. This morning we did meet with our IT team after receiving an analysis on our portal from the Department of Services for the Blind. And there are some issues that they brought to our attention that we're working with our vendor on fixing those to make sure that all of our sites are aligned with the expectations coming in April. And then moving forward, we just want to make sure that we're incorporating best practices in terms of accessibility. And there are a couple things that change our processes and our workflows. But so far, we're compliant with all of these changes that are coming. And so we just want to be ahead of the curve when we're thinking about adding new stuff to our website. Next slide. So obviously we want to make sure that we're staying compliant. So one of the things that I think is a big question, we have a lot of attachments on our website, so PDFs, presentations. And one thing to note is that these are considered kind of archived documents. So anything that's accessible on our website right now doesn't need to meet these accessibility expectations and requirements, but anything new does. So we're going to be doing some training for document authors and website authors to make sure that anything new that we're adding is meeting these requirements. So we're going to be hosting a short training session, posting some resources on the employee intranet, like a training video. There's actually already some links on there if you're interested in peeking at that. And we did a communications roundup article last week that talked about some of these changes and how they can impact folks. And if people are interested at the agency in getting in on that training or have any questions, they can feel free to reach out. I'll hand it over to Julie.
Hello, board members and others. Good afternoon. I'm Julie Graham, and I am working in the communications office. And I'll just say that this plain language executive order is a breath of fresh air for me, because it's something that I have cared about and been working on for a long time. In other agencies at the state, where maybe they have health communications that are critical to people's health, they've been really emphasizing plain language for a very long time because of the critical nature of their services. But last year, or I guess 2 years ago, we had an executive order from Governor Inslee, and then we have a new executive order that we need to comply with. So I'm going to tell you just a little bit about the fundamentals of plain language and why it's more than just choosing simple words. So plain language really is designed to help people find what they need, understand what they see, and take action or be able to perform their task easily. And there's a lot of research that backs up the importance of the fundamentals of plain language. It's proved to improve people's trust in an agency. It reduces mistakes from the customers. results in fewer frustrated phone calls coming in, and it ultimately improves people's compliance. So those are, some pretty important aspects of making sure that people can learn what they need to and do what they need to. Basically, it's simplicity of terms using very moderate literacy levels. So it's 8th grade is the level that we've been asked to write to. And, there's a lot of easy ways to do that. Word substitutions, things like that. Also using short sentences, using headings and other design elements to make sure that your important messages are present in those design elements that we know that people who scan are going to pick up, because we know that people only give us a few seconds. They make up their mind on whether they're going to digest our content or move along or call us or whatever it might be. So making sure that people can easily see and understand. And then putting your primary content at the top, getting rid of all the extraneous stuff. In government, we tend to do things like write, in 1999, under a grant by the such and such administration, we began doing such and such. Well, that's
don't forget there's got to be acronyms in there too, Julie.
Yeah. Yes. So we need to get rid of all that extraneous, not important content. And so that's one of the fundamentals, making sure we're designing that way. And then also we're required now to make sure that we are providing simple explanations of our legal and our WAC, our RCW, all of our complicated legal content. And there's simple ways that we've been working with our teams to do that. So now to the executive order and the initiative that we've been working on here for at least 2 years, really seriously. So the executive order required that we establish an agency policy, a plan that will support the policy, and then documentation to be able to demonstrate that we're doing what the executive order requires. So we have done all those things. And I'll go through some of the specifics. One of the things we've been doing is we've set up a cross-agency team, and we've been socializing these expectations. And socializing means making sure everybody understands what the requirements and the expectations are through the team, through our agency newsletter and our intranet. And then we've developed some systems for documenting our compliance. Some of the biggest things that we've done for our progress is that we do have an agency-wide team made up of leads from each of the divisions, and we all of those people have been trained from the Department of Enterprise Services on plain language courses, and then we've also encouraged additional learning. And then each month throughout 2025, we had mini trainings where I would just go through things like, how do you write for literacy? How do we test for our literacy levels? How do we design and develop our messaging with plain language as our goal? We've switched to quarterly meetings and trainings for this year, in part because we really have been working on this intensely for the last 1.5 years or 2 years. So now we're a little bit more in the maintenance in terms of our staff who needed to be trained. And, we have consistency among them. So right now our training is a little bit more manageable. Next slide, please. Thank you. One of the requirements is that we have to identify, review, and update most of our public-facing information. So that's a lot of the web content, forms, stuff on the portal, anything that we can identify as the most accessed content. We do that through Google Analytics and other ways of identifying what people come to our site most often for. So we do that every 6 months. And then the agency leads have been taking a look at those analytics and identifying what content they then need to update. So as Sam said, when we rolled over to our new website, a lot of work happened then. We also had a lot of work happening as we were developing the new portal. A lot of our learning aids, a lot of our content had to be reviewed anyway to make sure it was consistent with the new portal functions. So we were able to do a lot of plain language review on our website. We also have to have a process to review all external content every other year. So we're working right now to develop an automated way to do that through our website so that we can like basically tag a page that's been revised. So then we'll know, okay, we don't have to touch this page till the next time. And then, thank you. We have to also have a process for incorporating plain language into our technical and legal documents. And I have to say, this might be one of our most challenging situations. And that has to do with attorneys. No, it honestly, the issue is pretty standard. The people who have the most knowledge oftentimes insist on using the highest level language. And a lot of that has to do with wanting to make sure we're adhering directly to the state WAC, things like that. So there are very simple ways that you can get around maintaining that legal language. If you put like a basic description down below that says, you know, what this means for me. And then you give people, you know, the plain talk version of what they're actually reading up above. So there are ways that we can kind of get around that legal emphasis in our language. And then we need to prioritize content that most impacts people's ability to use our services. And so right now, that is our portal. We've done a lot of work in the portal to make sure we have learning tools available. We worked a lot with revising forms and other sorts of things, our customer notices that go out. All of that was plain language reviewed. And so we're also doing that same process as we're taking on the new tax and fee replacement system project. So we're working on a lot of making sure our forms are understandable and easy to use. Okay, next, Gretchen. Okay. I already talked a little bit about the plain language team. What they're doing is that they're supposed to be receiving all new content as a draft. So people who produce anything that's going to be seen by the public or our licensees should be sending all of their content to their division's plain language specialist. That person reviews it, revises it, documents it, and then sends it to me or Sam for a final plain language review. And then we also tally it so that we can demonstrate executive order compliance. Let's see. And then capacity development. You know, we want to make sure that it's not just the plain language point people who get these skills. They're very important skills to have. And so we are doing some work to make sure that we can support ongoing training. And then we have a new feature in our every other week publication that's called the Communication Insight. And so basically each time we have a publication, we'll go through a principle. We've done literacy and readability and how to structure your content using sentences that work and follow all those plain language tips. So that's what I have.
Thanks, Julie. All right, that is it for our presentation. Sorry, I went a little long there. Is there any questions or anything?
Thank you very much. I see you've got Brad there. Brad, do you have anything you want to say or you want to add to anything before we move on?
You know, I mean, I work in the middle of this. I'm like the support that helps, glue some of this stuff down to the ground and it looks good, right? So
Yeah.
I'm, my skill sets for presentations, my teammates use that all the time. So I'm here for it. I'm here for all of it.
All right. Well, great. I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I did want to give you a
No, that's
moment since
good.
you were
Wow.
there.
I like a little recognition. Thank you.
All right. Well, you deserve it,
These-
just as the rest of the team does.
These folks spoil me.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. That was great. I see Member Holmes got a hand up here. I'll just make a couple of comments and then turn it over to him for a question. This was really, really helpful. I think for a board member who, I understand, I follow the executive orders, that kind of stuff, but to get the detail of all the work going on behind the scenes is really helpful. I think it's also helpful for everyone around the table to be hearing this all together, as well as people who might be listening in. I've been involved in a lot of large scale website redesigns over my career and know how much work it is, not just for the team that's doing the work, but for each of the individual divisions that, are critical to the work as well. So I know that a lot of work went into that. Sam, I did have a couple of questions and I didn't want to interrupt the flow of your presentation, and you touched on the most visited sites, but I was just curious, what are our most visited sites? I assume it may be something related to licensing, although I don't know that for sure, or E&E, but just curious about what are some of our most visited sites on the website.
Yeah. So I did the top 200. So as you can imagine, like that's a lot of kind of what is on our site. But I would say kind of general themes in terms of most visited pages are definitely MAST RVP is always up there. So like our MAST permit checker, our trainings around those kinds of things, enforcement and education, like educational materials are definitely up there. As well as like laws and rules. I think those are kind of the big three categories that are like most accessed. And then we kind of have, as we go through ebbs and flows of like programs, so like social equity, for example, is pretty high up, but usually only during when it's active.
Right.
And we're kind of
Okay.
promoting that. So it just kind of depends on what we're featuring. I expect like 15/15 stuff will probably definitely get an uptick as we start to get closer to those events.
Great, thank you. And I think that the visibility and accessibility, when I look at the, I have been around long enough to see the website before and see it now, I think it looks great personally. I think a lot of work went into it. I think it's a much more usable, both for internal staff as well as the community. I did have a question about the documents, documents that are attached, and you said we don't have to go back and do anything, but moving forward, does that include everything like meeting minutes and PowerPoint presentations that are presented at meetings, all of that kind of stuff? Okay, yeah, so we've got, okay, so great. And then Julie, I had just a comment just about the plain language. If I'm not mistaken, in our staff meeting, our board office staff meeting this week, I think it was mentioned that the plain language stuff actually goes back years to like Governor Gregoire or something. So the state's been working on this for many years, and it just seems like we get better and better and better, and it really becomes embedded in the work that we do. And so just wanted to acknowledge that we've been doing this for a long time, and this is an evolution of the work that has been going on. So appreciate all your work on that. Okay, with that, I will turn it over. Board Member Holmes, I think you had a question or comment that you wanted to make.
Two quick questions. Sam, you mentioned starting to work with a vendor in 2024. Did you name the vendor? And is that relationship ongoing to, execution phase now?
Yeah, so it is. Our vendor changed their name. So it was Chapter 3 initially was the website vendor that we worked with, but they're now called Canopy with a K-N-O-P-I. And they've been great to work with. We've loved working with them. And yes, that relationship is ongoing. So they helped us launch the website and we're really hands-on. And we've been kind of in the maintenance phase, but they've been collaborating with IT in terms of like pushing updates, those coding issues that I mentioned. They helped collaborate to fix some of those. And so we do work with them pretty regularly to make sure that our website is getting the updates that it needs.
Mm-hmm. And without getting too deep in the weeds, does AI help at all with both plain language messaging and some of these website updates?
We haven't really used AI tools too much in terms of updating the website. I'll let Julie talk a little bit about kind of the plain language stuff. But it gets kind of sticky. And so we follow WATEC guidance around using AI. And I will say it probably could be a helpful tool depending on what you need to use it for. But we also know that it sometimes hallucinates or gets things wrong. And so we want to be careful in terms of using those tools.
Just think maybe it could help with Julie's concern about excessive legalese. I don't know. The crutch for the insecure lawyer. Sorry.
I saw the look on your face.
Yeah, we haven't explored using AI for that. Right now, we have a lot of good content developed. It's much more like choosing words like use instead of utilize, and developing just a general explanation for complex things, which I think probably requires expertise.
Yeah, present voice, things like that. You know, I remember Kurt Vonnegut once said that the only use of a semicolon is to show that you have a college degree.
That's true.
Well, and yeah, research shows that even people with really high literacy levels prefer plain language.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Brian, anything in closing that you want to add?
No, just thank you for the time and glad to have my team here to be able to present. Did want to emphasize too that Brad, even though he didn't have a lead role in this, in the writing and stuff that we do, Brad's involved with everything that we do and he's an important part here. And I wanted him to sit here at the corner just for that role.
Great. All right, thank you very much. Just we'll make an editorial comment about this. You know, we've restructured, we're doing a little bit different. This is really great. This is really helpful information that gives us an opportunity to dig a little bit deeper and to hear more about the work that's happening in each of the sections of the LCB. So really appreciate it. And we'll transition to our human resources team, who I'm sure will do as good a job, and look forward to hearing from you guys as well. Before you do that, I will say that the Huskies beat USC, so I'll leave it at that. In overtime. All right, so Janita, I'll turn it over to you and you can introduce Dawn, Amy, and Matthew.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Chair Vollendrauf, members Garrett and Holmes. We're really excited to be here. It's not common for HR to be in front of so many folks, so we're kind of excited. I'd like to start first by introducing myself, Janita Thompson, HR Director, and then I'd like my team to introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Dawn Russell. I'm the Labor Relations. I don't know which microphone I'm using.
I think the microphone.
We're all over.
Hi, I'm
We
Dawn
can hear you
Russell.
loud and clear.
Okay, good. I'm Dawn Russell. I'm the Labor Relations and HR Operations Manager.
Hi, Dawn.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Matthew Cornwall, and I'm a fellow Husky alum, so
All right.
yeah, go Dogs. I'm the talent development and the recruitment supervisor in HR. I've been here about 2 months.
All right, nice to meet you, Matthew, and welcome.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Zarian, and I am one of the recruiters supporting our agency.
Hi, Amy.
Good afternoon. My name is Yoli Cellini. I'm an HR consultant for the Enforcement and Education Division and the Finance Division.
Welcome.
To my colleagues out there.
And then our team back here in the audience.
Michelle Gillis, HR Consultant for Licensing, IT, and the Director's Office.
Hi, Michelle.
Hello. Pat Pupan, and I work in payroll and benefits.
Welcome.
Hello, Cynthia Botop, Payroll and Benefits.
Hello, Melissa Valdez, Administrative Assistant and Learning Center Coordinator for the agency. And I'll hand it back to Jonita.
And we have 3 members that aren't here today. Riley, who's our HRMS data steward, Lindsay, our senior recruiter, and then Martha, our payroll and benefits manager. Gretchen, will you bring up the slides? Thank you. So we have a couple of things that we'll talk about today. We'll talk about the employee engagement survey, executive order 2404, a little bit about employee exit data, and then a quick payroll update. Next
Great,
slide.
thank you.
So the next 2 slides summarize the agency's employee engagement survey results. Just a little background. In 1999, no, I'm just kidding. Each year in October, state employees are invited to participate in an anonymous survey that really captures their work experiences. Multiple questions make up each of the categories. As you can see, recognition, communication, engagement, and so forth. And we are showing the results by question and then also by the category. Percent positive, what you'll see are percent positive scores. And so just a quick update on that. Percent positive is defined as the percentage of responses that received an agree or strongly agree score. And so we're showing both 24, 25 agency scores and then the 2025 statewide score. So those are those three columns that you see there. 284 LCB employees participated in the survey this year, and that's a 76% response rate, which is really great. You'll see that we've highlighted two categories there. The first is growth and development, and the second is manager effectiveness. I'm going to start with the good news. The LCB saw significant improvement in the manager effectiveness category in 2025. Our scores improved by 7% from 2024, and our 25 results are 5% higher than the statewide average. So we're pretty happy with those results. One of the areas that we look like the greatest opportunity for us is in the growth and development category. Our growth and development scores fell 7% from last year and are 3% lower than this year's statewide average. If you'll go to the next slide, I'll just keep talking about some of the results there. I would just like to note that growth and development overall for the state as a whole also went down significantly. There are lots of reasons that could have happened, but we weren't alone in seeing the decline in growth and development. You'll notice that the last section here, it's called impact, that category. That's a new category, which is why you don't see any results for 2024. This actually replaces the PAIR category, which is the pro-equity anti-racism. We'll continue to monitor the scores in this category as time goes on. That's a lot of information, and it really is just a starting point, meaning that the scores from the employee engagement survey don't solve a mystery. It really just helps leadership see where we should be paying a little bit more attention. And our leadership team is continuing to look at the data to determine what our next steps will be. And so I look forward to sharing the results of some of our efforts a little bit later this year. Any questions before we move to the next subject? I know that was really quick.
I have a couple of questions. Janita, you mentioned that the response rate for the LCB was 76%, which I think is fantastic. Do you know, just off the top of your head, how that compares to the statewide response rate?
Ooh, I'm not sure.
Okay, I don't know either, but I do know it's higher, that the LCBs is higher, and I just noticed that in looking at things, so wanted to highlight that. And although we don't know the exact number, we do know we had a higher response rate overall. The second thing that I wanted to ask about was, and I just lost it, so I'll pass on to my colleagues and see if my colleagues have any questions while I try to remember my question or comment. Any questions? Okay, you indicated that that we will be looking at where we go from here. I do know that you have met with and had conversations with all of the directors. Are you seeing any themes or general themes from directors as you have conversations with them about their, what they're seeing?
I think growth and development is the hot topic, definitely on the table. That may really influence what we do as an agency goal. Each division director is encouraged to identify at least one area to focus some efforts this year. So it'll be interesting to see what is selected there. We know again that this really is just the starting point, and division directors as well as at the agency level will need to talk to staff to get a better sense of what it is that they're really looking for.
Okay, great. And that was the area that I had lost my question on, was around the growth and development. And as a small state agency, opportunities within a small state agency can be challenging. I mean, we just don't have as much room and that kind of stuff. So I'm assuming that's part of it. But it'll be great to have more conversations and figure out how we can address that. You know, I've said this before in past employee engagement surveys. Our employees are our greatest asset, and we want to do everything we can to listen to them and to incorporate their feedback into continuing to create an environment where we're clearly seeing people are satisfied with their supervisors, they're satisfied with the overall culture of the agency, and it's critical that we continue to address areas where they have concerns so we can continue that culture of environment that people feel positive about. So thank you, appreciate it. All right, go ahead and continue.
Thanks. Next slide, please. And I'm going to turn it over to Dawn.
Hello, I'm going
Dawn.
to be presenting to you some information about Executive Order 2404, which is increasing employment opportunities in Washington state government. Order 2404 built on Executive Order 2202, achieving equity in Washington state, and 2204, advancing a pro-equity anti-racism ecosystem. Executive Order 2404 identifies specific actions for agencies to take and meet the goals outlined in the order in order to meet those goals. We are working on improvements and enhancements in 6 categories, which we've listed here for you. There's hiring standards, improving access to state employment, improving Washington state government equity competency, government's equity competency, recruitment and hiring requirements, pay equity, and we have reporting requirements as well. HR, we have identified 22 action items that need attention in order to meet the goal of the executive order. Some of them are straightforward, such as policy updates, standardizing language, and validating training. Others are going to be a little bit more time and resource intensive, such as position-specific competencies for each position, which I'll hand over to Matthew, and he'll go into more of that.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, so with Executive Order 2404, it's basically encouraging state agencies to focus more on the skills and abilities aspect other than the traditional formal education and rigid experience requirements that we've seen for years on the hiring process. And the goals of this to expand the access to state jobs, increase workforce diversity, decrease bias in hiring, improve recruitment outcomes, and build a workforce that reflects the true people of Washington state. With the second bullet there, we have is to basically consider the broader range of combination of education, skills, and knowledge. And these are usually gained through things such as military service, apprenticeships, certifications, work experience, and community and volunteering service, such as through high school organizations and through religious organizations. And then by being flexible with the qualifications, it will increase the applicant pools, making the process more fair, and will help improve the performance management and internal employee development here at LCB. Next slide, please, Rachel. Thank you. So to do this, we have 3 actions that we're taking into account, and that will be starting to deliver and to develop and deliver the training on competency-based hiring for those individuals that are participating on the recruitment panels. And this will include things that, such as position description to the job announcement, to supplemental questions, through the interview and reference questions. And then by partnering, LCB is partnering with L&I to deliver the training and guidance to the Equal Pay and Opportunities Act, or EPOA, and that process has already been started and initiated at this point. And finally, we'll be working and providing supervisors with the training on writing and updating the position descriptions. And this is from basically looking at the greater emphasis on skill and foundational competencies that staff need to perform those types of work. And then this will help set up the framework for the divisions to create their own competencies. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. On theme with competency-based hiring as a part of the recruitment and hiring participation requirement, all hiring managers, panel members, and really anybody associated with the hiring of a candidate is required to take a training. So as of March of 2025, There was a requirement to take the recognizing and mitigating bias in hiring training. And this training is really about bias awareness and its impacts in hiring. It was required annually. More recently, there's been the introduction of the refresher course, Reducing Bias and Noise with a Competency-Based Approach. And this really is building on that first training, and it's guiding on really approaching hiring through the competency-based approach. These trainings are implemented really in 2 phases. Number 1, communication. When the recruitment is established, the recruitment team works with the hiring manager to make it clear that this one of these trainings is required in order for them to proceed with the recruitment. Also, at that point, the hiring manager is informed that anybody associated with the recruitment, i.e. the panel members, are also required to take this training. And then phase 2 comes with the validation. So HR can pull a report and validates that everybody involved has taken the training, and then we can proceed. In addition to these trainings, we also share a guide with panel members that was developed internally, and that guide focuses on confidentiality expectations, guidance on comments and observations during the interview process, and the interview structure, and common topics and possible errors that could occur. Obviously, the goal with all of these learning opportunities is that we create a equitable and inclusive, effective hiring process. Julie, I'll pass it to you.
Great, thank you. All right, so to use plain language, what you see here. No, so this slide illustrates the number of employees separated per quarter during the 2025 calendar year. These separation actions consists of retirements, transfer to other state agencies, resignations from state service, dismissals, and end of project appointments. Once the notification is received in our office, a few actions take place. The separation action is keyed, and then payroll closes out the record to maybe finalize any type of last payments or benefits or leaves or things of that nature. Simultaneously, an email is sent out to thank the employee for their service, as well as inviting them to complete an exit survey via the Qualtrics platform. Additionally, as that is taking place as well, the respective HR consultant, my colleague Michelle or I, will send the email out to the employee directly and engage with them, asking them if they would like to have an exit interview with us. So in essence, as we talk about data, what that looked like for 2025 was that we completed 56 separation actions. 19 of those were short notice or same day separation. So unfortunately, we were not able to engage with the employee to invite them to an exit survey or an exit interview. Conversely, 37 emails were delivered. 34 employees were contacted for an exit interview. 18 accepted to meet with us and provide feedback. Other 16 declined or did not respond. When we're looking at the data that was pulled from the Qualtrics data system, we saw that 17 of the employees that we contacted completed the survey. Now, there is no way that I could confirm here now that it was either the 18 that we, spoke with initially, or the people who declined, or a combination of. We just know that 17 people completed the survey. The primary reasons listed for leaving this agency and or where they were heading consisted of either pay or promotion opportunities, organizational leadership, and other personal reasons, like maybe they were relocating, they were going to take some travel, some family concerns, or some health concerns, or they were just simply changing careers. The institutions that they were heading to consisted of either local, federal, or tribal government agencies, the private sector. Some listed not having anything lined up, or they were just simply retiring and enjoying the rest of their lives. So with that, if there's any questions pending, I will pass it back to you, Ms. Janita.
Any questions there? We just want to pause and give a chance.
Okay, before we move on, I'll see if any of my colleagues have any questions. All right, I have a couple of questions. First of all, I want to acknowledge the work around competency-based hiring and interviews. I think that that's great. I think taking into consideration one's prior experience, lived experience, job experience, etc., is a critical way in increasing the overall applicant pool, and really acknowledge and appreciate that. I don't know if the right word is, if it's ironic or unfortunate that the increased employment opportunities in Washington state government executive order comes at a time when we've got a hiring freeze. But as we know, we continue to hire people who are employees that provide critical services. So obviously, this is still an important thing happening right now. Getting to the exit surveys, I had a question about one, you did talk a little bit about some of the data, but I'm wondering, what do we do with the data? What do we do with it once we collect it? Is it discussed? I think exit interviews are incredibly important, and they give us an opportunity to learn who's doing extremely well in the LCB in terms of supervision and supporting their staff, because we hear that in exit interviews, and we may hear where there are challenges. So I'm curious what we do with that data. And then the last question I had relates to staff turnover. I'm wondering, do we have an idea of how the LCB compares to other state agencies in terms of staff turnover? Are we higher, lower, in line with other state agencies? Does anybody know that? So those are my questions.
We don't know, but we can get it. Yeah. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can get that information for you.
Okay, great. What about what do we do with the survey information from exit interviews?
So typically, the consultant would reach back to the appointing authority or the director of that division, and we'll brief them basically on what that feedback was, and then they'll take that information and apply it towards their operations in the future.
Are the director or deputy director briefed on outcomes of surveys?
Well, we do brief on the engagement survey.
I'm thinking the exit interviews.
If a topic comes up during an exit interview that causes concern, we have taken it to the division directors by chance, or even to Tony or Will, to give them a heads up about something that's going on, or potentially something that might need to be looked into a little deeper. So we do take information to the directors and agency director and deputy director when we see something.
All right, and I bring that up only because I think it's sometimes a missed opportunity in that I'm not really as concerned about the challenges that get brought up as much as what are the great things that you're hearing that staff do in each of the divisions that we can use as a training opportunity for other divisions to learn from. And so it just might be, I'm throwing out a suggestion that it might be something that would be great for it to become a topic of conversation and then reported back in an a management team meeting so that people can be hearing what their colleagues are doing that are really helpful and successful, that we're hearing from employees as they exit the LCB.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, Janita, I'll turn it back over to you and let you close us out.
Thank you so much. So we just really want to finish our time together here with some special appreciation for our payroll team and our HRMS data steward who deliver gold standard service to our staff. Perfect payroll. So a perfect payroll, state payroll means that all information processed was resulted in staff receiving a paycheck through the system, meaning no one had to get a manual check or was locked out of the system. So I guess that is just like there's an asterisk. It doesn't mean there weren't any corrections that needed to be made or information that might happen, change on a subsequent payroll, but it just means everybody got a paycheck on time.
Great.
So LCB's payroll and data steward team had 24 perfect payrolls in 2025.
Amazing.
And that perfect payroll streak is continuing into 2026 with 5 perfect payrolls so far. So special thanks to our payroll team. That's Martha, Cynthia, Pat, and then Riley, who is our HRMS data steward. Really important team making sure that our folks get paid and paid on time. And just for context, there were only 5 perfect statewide payrolls. So our team is exceeding.
Wow, nice.
It's amazing.
We're doing really great. We're doing really great. So I just want to thank you for the time today. And it was a lot of fun being here and being able to share a little bit about the work we're doing.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much. And as was the presentation from Brian's team, as great to hear from your team and also get exposed to much more of the HR team than I've actually ever been exposed to all at one time. I've met many of you individually. I feel like I do need to give a shout out to Martha as well. Martha's my go-to in HR and she's very responsive. So shout out to Martha. All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Anything from my colleagues, board members, questions or comments?
Just thank you. I know this took a lot of time and I really learned a lot. So appreciate it. Much appreciated.
Great. Thank you so much. All right, we are down to our last agenda item, which is a roundtable and final board inquiries. So anything, start with my board members, fellow board members, anything that you have questions or comments that you want to make? I see that board member Garrett has gone off but she can't talk. So we'll save it for next time unless you raise your hand and tell me otherwise. All right, board member Holmes, did you have anything?
Just wanted to make sure that everyone's aware of the storm that's coming in. I hope everyone has battened down the hatches and look forward to some better skiing after it passes.
Yes, yes. I talked to Kevin earlier. He's going skiing, so I know at least he's taking advantage of the upcoming snow. All right. Any other roundtable items from other members of the LCB leadership before we close out today? All right, Tony, I see your hand raised. Thank you.
Just wanted to let the board know that our new CIO, Stephanie Ratko, will start on March 23rd. And so she will be present at the next EMT. We're very excited to get her on board. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And I saw that nice message. George has a new role as well. And what a great message that you sent out. And congratulations to George as well. All right. Any other roundtable updates from staff? I can't see anybody in the room. So if anybody in the room has anything, you're going to have to shout out. All right. Well, hearing none, I think that concludes our agenda today. So thanks, everybody. Great meeting, and I'll talk to you soon. Go Dogs.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
I have patches and feedback.